I just want to take a second and talk about the difference between the ways of God and the will of God. The will of God is a very real thing. You'll find scriptures all throughout the Bible where it talks about God's will. But I find that in Christendom, and at least in my part of Christendom and evangelicalism, we really have a misunderstanding when we talk about God's will for our lives. And it seems like so many wonderful believers in all kinds of different churches spend their whole lives trying to understand what is God's will for my life. What is God's calling on my life? What am I supposed to be doing for God? And I think the problem with the words, the will of God, for most of us here, is that they are task-oriented. They are action-oriented. We figure if we're doing the will of God, we'll be doing the right things. We'll be in the right place. We'll be where He wants us to be. We'll be doing what He wants us to do. Until we figure out what that is, we feel like we're not living a life that's pleasing to Him. Anybody ever struggle with that? That's a very common thing that we struggle with. One of my goals is to help us understand this morning that it's not important for you to understand God's will for your life. What's important is that you learn His way. When we learn His ways, we start walking on His path. And when you walk on His path, you find yourself in His will. You don't need to know His will to do His will. You need to walk in His ways, and you will be in His will.